thinking about it.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June Planning Commission DDA meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Time is now 7 p.m. And Secretary Cox, will you take attendance, please? Present. Mr. Bishop?
Present.
Mr. Manchester?
Present.
Mr. Holmes?
Present.
Mr. Newman? Mr. Wartella?
Present.
Mr. DeBolt?
Present.
Mr. Cox is here. Ms. Horn.
Present.
Right. Next item on our agenda this evening is the approval of the agenda. Just everyone's had time to review that. And I will call for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Move that we approve the agenda as submitted.
Motion on the floor from Holmes,
Member Bishop, I support.
support from Bishop. Any further discussion? Not. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Time is now for citizen comments. If anyone from the group would like to make comments, you must state your full name, home address, and time is limited to 4 minutes. No, if you would like.
No, Paula's she owns Apple Knockers, so
Right.
we'll provide her an opportunity during that agenda.
Okay.
It's on that. You can most certainly talk about any other topic you'd like to.
All right. Hearing none, we will move on. Next is approval of minutes from last month's, April's meeting.
This is going to be an error on my part. Well, I don't believe and correct me if I'm wrong, the packet that I have did not have the May minutes in it. Okay, we'll just move that and present the May and June in July.
Great.
And so everyone here and on YouTube knows, the clerk did get them to me last week. It was my fumble.
So, point of clarification, did we already approved the minutes from April and May? Okay.
We've approved the ones from April. The May minutes will accompany the June minutes at the July meeting for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Mallory. Seeing as there are no minutes to approve this meeting, we will move on to the village manager report.
And one thing, because we're operating here, I want to we're going to try to get Mr. Horn in, because he's probably online wondering where his Zoom meeting is. So if I can give me a minute to... And Christian, will go off my mic if Andrew needs to speak. And we might just make him a phone call. See if he can. That's in. Hey, I'm gonna put you on speaker. I'm having some difficulty with this audio, okay? When we get to you, I apologize. Um, Okay, we're just going to, new Village Hall, foundation has been poured, the basement walls have been poured. Anticipate framing will begin this week. We're about, pretty much right on schedule, actually. Weather's cooperating and everything underground went well. So we're gonna progress forward and keep moving with pretty exciting times. We did put out to bid, received 4 competitive bids on the furniture package. Happy to report we have awarded that to a company, Trellis. We meet with them this Thursday or Friday, and under our estimated budget, the overall bids came in a little over 30,000 under what we estimated. So the next item that we're going to look at on the Village Hall is the digital sign for out front. We'll go through a competitive bid process on that as well and have that in alignment to continue this project being a financed by cash deal, but happy to answer any questions, reference or specific to Village Hall's project. Okay,
Jim, when's the first meeting gonna be in there?
well, like I tell everyone, 2025 and anytime before that, we've performed amazingly. I believe, safely, I would hope, first meeting of May in the spring. Could be before that, but I think that with the way construction goes and something at the end, not arriving on time or something outside of our control, especially weather and that, but that's my hope. And we might hold a meeting before, because what definitely is gonna impact how much of a temporary parking lot do we have going into the winter season, because we know the current Village Hall, we're not gonna take down until after the winter or spring of '24 and then we'll put the permanent parking lot in. So that's one of the variables, depending upon the space we have available with the temporary parking lot, having a meeting there.
Hey, Jim, I just wanted to ask a quick question, that is regarding the digital sign. I think it's great. I've seen these used in other communities. I thought at one time there was kind of a question, will we, won't we? Just out of curiosity, thoughts on the digital sign, how did that all develop?
Well, it is a trend in messaging. Communication was an important part of the strategic plan with the council. So we want to go out to bids. We estimate it's within our overall estimation of what the project would cost. We had a number in mind for a digital sign. And we'll let the bid paperwork see if we're underneath that or not.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And the other is, of course, we're going to have the Berg Days of Summer start this Wednesday. Looking forward to that. We have a band on Main Street, Hurricane, out of the city of Chicago, one of the top reggae bands out of the city of Chicago. And we have Left on Main that will be on Prairie Street. Free, open to the public. We'll have 6 food trucks. We have Vertical Edge bringing in a very large blow-up obstacle course for kids. We're going to have multiple bag games laid out on the street, as well as Connect 4 and some other games. We did order some larger Jenga games, but they're not going to be until next week to add to it. I know Randy Hartman's going to have a display of photos from around the village at 101 Prairie and Cultural Arts Center with kids' activities. The featured nonprofit that serves local citizens will be Generous Hands. So they'll have a booth, and the council will have a booth. So they'll have a couple council members in to meet and interact with the public throughout the event. This Wednesday at 5:30 to 8:30. Look forward to everyone coming down. It looks like right now, decent weather, and it's going to be a great family event to get people in our downtown. We also this week have two other events. One being the farmers market, and a decision was made the third Friday of each month to move the farmers market to Main Street between Washington and Prairie. So the vendors will be in the middle of Main Street from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And they'll be back to back, so people, when they're walking through, are between the retail stores and the farmers market. I think there'll be other smaller stuff, but as well, we think that's a great event to have in our downtown. As well as then Friday night, out at the Historic Village Pavilion, we'll have our first movie in the park, family-oriented movie, I believe is Cars. We have a touch a truck set up so the kids can see different touch a trucks from law enforcement, and hopefully, I believe South County Fire will participate, as well as I'll have some DPW trucks down there for the movie Cars. The movie starts at sunset, and it's a large screen, but the Touch a Truck event starts at 8 o'clock. And is family oriented as well. So a big kickoff to the summer here coming out of the Vicksburg Vintage Car Show over the weekend. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about those events.
Jim, do you have an estimated time at what time the streets will be? Are you, like on Friday with the farmer's market at 2 o'clock, are they gonna start shutting down the street at noon or something to clear the things?
I'll get
or-
back on the specific time. I do know Wednesdays, we had a briefing again today on the timing and where all of our vehicles will be. I did not ask on Friday, so I don't want to be wrong. So let me follow up with you.
I
on
don't
that.
think the Wednesdays are gonna be any effect, but I just wondered what time the Fridays.
Yeah, Wednesdays, I can tell you, cones will start being put out, blocking off parking spots at 1 o'clock on Prairie Street, about quarter after, and North Main Street. It's gonna be a little bit different, where the band's located, which will be just south of Nick's Barber Shop. We've bought a new stage that we're gonna put out for the first time. So those 3 parking spots could be coned off by 1 o'clock, so we can make sure that they're clear to set this stage up. And then barricades will go up at 4:30. 6 food trucks are to arrive at between 4:30 and 5 to be ready by 5:15. And 4:30, this large obstacle course will be put in place on North Main, just north of Prairie, equal to Oswald Park. So,
How many farmers markets are we doing? One a month
1 a month, the 3rd week of the month,
through
third Friday of the month.
September, or?
I believe it's just the summer months of June, July, and August. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Jim, you mentioned that you have like lawn games for the Berg Days. Are those to be set up every Wednesday?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then,
We'll add to it. There'll be a couple other surprises that come out Wednesday, and
fun.
so we're gonna have. I'm getting some eyes from one of the council trustees right now. All within budget. Should have I started with that? The surprises are we're going to have really unique selfie stands added each week, so families and individuals, and I'll highlight Vicksburg to get Vicksburg messaging out. And Berg Days of Summer display will put out as well, and a couple of the other surprises I'll just wait till the council members see how their arrangement's set up, but I think they'll like it. And it's going to be evaluation every Thursday at 10. Will be a debriefing on how that Wednesday went and preparing for the next one in this learning exercise. So I will highlight as in all of our downtown events that the Village of Vicksburg initiates or is a partner in, we put out all of our heavy equipment. We don't just put barricades out. So you'll see all DPW equipment at entry exit points, as well as the barricades. So it'll be pedestrian walkable from Michigan to Kalamazoo, and the alley just north there of Oswald Park to Washington Street. For should be a good time. Indication on social media it's getting a little bit of traction. So see how it goes.
Great. Any other questions for the village manager and his report?
Jim, just a side question, and that is regarding the Old Car Festival. Was curious if any of the business owners were able to share with you the impact they felt the Friday and Saturday had on their business. So
Yeah, I made impact or impact. Yeah, I made no impact on the event, but I did hear the feedback as I made contact with every retail. All the comments were very positive. Multiple retail establishments in different areas of retail identified that in especially Friday night was their best Friday night ever. And at the conclusion of Saturday, I haven't followed up, but I ended up leaving about 4 or 4:30 Saturday afternoon, and very positive comments as well from the retail stores that were open up then. So we had about Friday night between 4,500 and 6,000 people in town, and Saturday I think will be over 11,000, but I'll get that data by the end of the week.
how did Apple Knockers do there, dude? Please.
But hold, well, and I don't mean to cut you off, but we can take the comments, but you're just going to have to come so it can be heard. We're streaming right now. So, no, we want to hear the comments. We'll just use that microphone up here.
I'd just like to say that as far as the car show went, Apple Knockers Ice Cream Parlor actually had its largest day in our 15-year history in sales on Friday, and the second largest day in our 15-year sales on Saturday. So it was well, thank you. Well, you all do the hard work, so we just scoop ice cream.
Some mittens next time. For frostbite, you've got. Thank you. Let's hear it.
Glad it's over.
Is that a good thing?
Great. Next item.
It comes to my mind, and I think it's important sometimes to relay some of these stories. And Mr. Holmes was actually present for the conversation. Friday, I was walking throughout downtown with a developer who develops commercial and private residence, commercial throughout Southwest Michigan and maybe beyond, but certainly Southwest Michigan. And I'll summarize in a 2-hour walk through the village and talking about the transformation of the physical layout downtown with other stuff, but the pocket park there. He's not from Vicksburg, but his comment that really sticks with me is how many communities he has projects involved would love to have the downtown that we have. And I know, Rick, you talked to him for a few minutes there about other things, but it's my world has completely the teeter-totter flipped to those type of comments, people in government, developers, people looking at the community, these events. And quite frankly, we've all been around a while, and we know what goes on in communities our size, within a radius of whatever you want to pick. And at a certain point, we have to not shy away from the fact there are very few, if any, communities that are putting people in their downtowns, such as Vicksburg is. So it's something to be proud about and celebrate. And I'm hoping and anticipating the momentum will continue this summer and propel beyond that. So I apologize, Mr. Schenkel, but all of a sudden, boom, there it was in my head.
Excellent words to share, for sure. Next item on our list here is the action items from the Planning Commission. First on that list is presentation by McKenna on the future land use. And Mr. Mucha.
And I just want to confirm by a head nod, Mr. Horn, you can hear us fine? All right, and I do have my phone on speaker open with you. If you want to inject, maybe just raise your hand first and or say something, and we'll make sure I get the mic properly positioned.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I first want to preface I am joined tonight by Emily Human, who is a McKenna planning intern with us in the Kalamazoo office for the summer. So because she wants to get outside of the schoolwork and all that, I've asked her to tag along with us to this meeting since she is local in the Kalamazoo area. So being new to the planning field, we felt this would be a good thing, and with the consensus of village manager Mallory, for her to attend. So she is here as an observer, maybe chimes in here and there. You might see her maybe in July as well, potentially. But I just want to preface that she is here as a planning intern with us for this. So before you, for the first packet item we have is the future land use recommendations. This has been an analysis that our team has gone over regarding the 2015 future land use categories of the master plan, and then recommendations to the planning commission on the areas that should change. The first one we looked at is North Boulevard. It is the property that is just north of the Bronson and Turning Leaf, that parking lot and wooded area there. Looking at the 2015 plan, this calls for workplace future land use. We feel that it would be prudent, and especially the presentation we did last month for housing scarcity within the region, to reclassify this to multifamily. As we know, within Vicksburg, we have severely limited land options left. We felt that in order to help maintain that housing increase, it would be potential to reclassify this to a multifamily category. And I'll stop there because there's a few others we'll go through, but I'll stop there if there's any questions on just this one itself. Mr. Holmes.
Cal, I think it's great, and it goes right along with what we've heard about additional senior housing. I'm just curious from your perspective, from McKenna's perspective, does Turning Leaf own that property today? Is that correct? That's the parking lot where the helipad used to be, that area right there?
Correct.
Would it be in their interest to develop it, or from your perspective, is it kind of, we're getting too ahead of ourselves here if we're looking at that. I'm just curious. It's one thing to rezone it. It's another thing to have kind of an interest in it.
The point of clarity on that, though, Mr. Holmes, it's not a rezoning. This would be just a designation in the master plan for what that area could look like in 10 to 15 years. So there's two different options, completely different items there. So it's not a rezoning.
So it's not
rezoning.
It is zoned residential today then?
It is. The future land use calls for this to be workplace, completely separate from the zoning plan.
Okay.
So this is just looking at your policy guidelines, what you envision the village to be in a 10 to 15 year period.
Okay.
So that's what we're discussing here tonight, of what these various properties could be visioned for in the next 15 years.
Right.
So not rezoning. I want to make that real clear. And then I will defer to Mr. Mallory on any potential development or conversations along that nature for this site.
While we look at existing land that is within the village that can be developed, and also as prior conversations have indicated, with the needs of the housing in Kalamazoo County and Southwest Michigan and affordable housing, we look at what areas could potentially be developed. And we also look at, you know, what developers are looking at and would be willing, with the proper municipal involvement and green lights, if you will, to place money. So it all layers into that. But to get into specific about our current owner, that's something we probably shouldn't get into.
And I appreciate that, and I wasn't meaning to go as far as I went with it. I think the question that I have as we're going through this, and I don't know if any of the other committee members have this, and that is, so there's ideas, suggestions, thoughts we have, and how we would like to look at land use, but at some point in time, someone's got to invest the money. So my question is, where's private and public come together? Do we throw it out there and we have wishful thinking, or we don't have like someone doing, you know, economic and business development? Obviously you are, Mr. Mallory, but again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. I'm just trying to get the right mind frame here as we're going through, you know, how we're looking at land should be developed in the community is the only thing I'm asking.
Yeah, it's more than a swag or a gas that's gone into this analyzation of existing land that's privately or publicly owned within the municipality. And through the process, staff's recommendation will be based on the data we've acquired that would put any specific area. So I'm generalizing, but any specific area that we were to identify, put us in the best position to get future projects over a finish line and receive that investment.
Further questions on this property? Okay. The next one we wanted to, we advise staff on is 3129 East VW. It's the existing barn and home just adjacent, southwest of the industrial complex there at the edge of the village. It is marked on your sheet by that yellow star. It's currently from the 2015 master plan called for recreation and open space. Doing our analysis and looking at the zoning map, it currently is zoned, Mr. Holmes, industrial. So in order to help kind of clarify and clean some items up, our recommendation is to change this existing classification from recreation to industrial. As it stands right now, a developer could come in and want to rezone the property to open space or recreation because it would be supported by the master plan. Cleaning this up to an industrial property would then allow someone to come in and use it more for an industrial plan if it wasn't already rezoned. But then the master plan would be consistent with that development area. So that's why this one has been reclassified.
And I'm very comfortable getting into this a little bit more, the weeds. The village owns that property. So I wasn't a part of why that would have been made recreational, to put recreational activities out next to your industrial park. It is not where this staff would recommend recreational activities to be. We historically, I do know that some people use the property for a public garden, but that we went through that and don't have to relive that, but it would need to soil tested. And right now in the current marketplace, industrial property that has access to utility hookups, water and sewer, are at a premium in this county. And so we are motivated as staff to make sure that designation fits, and it could fit in a combined commercial industrial, but as we sit right now, I believe Kyle's right on track. We'll be recommending that to be identified as potential industrial. And then if we went through this process, the master plan gets adopted, and then it gets into an area outside of traffic stops and arrests and that type of thing. So I defer to Kyle, but I believe we do text amendments to ordinances or zoning and that then we would be able to market that property. We do know in October state funding grant opportunities for demolition. of sites that could be turned industrial will really open up. So again, I'm more prepared, but we are doing similar contacts and analysis on a lot of other properties that I probably won't go into detail on, but I can on this one, because we own it and we know some futuristic opportunities of outside money that can demo the barn that needs to be demoed, demo the house, prep that site, put it on the market and would command a decent price. You'll also see, part of what we're looking at is, what some would consider a very antiquated industrial zoning requirements. So we've made contact with appropriate legal staff and others to look at that and to have in front of our governmental boards by the month of October what would be similar to many, many, many municipalities within this county, and lift some of these restrictions in our current zoning that developers might have questions over because they can go to another municipality and it's just not there in the industrial. But we'll get into more details. But those are the type of things we're well into in trying to get dominoes lined up for when they start falling.
Questions on the village-owned property? Our third recommendation is for 815 West Prairie Street. This used to be the old Family Dollar. It's now the consignment shop. The 2015 master plan calls for this to be neighborhood commercial. It's our recommendation based on the existing land development in this area to reclassify this to industrial. We have an existing public roadway, 4th Street right there, that would act as a transitional buffer between the residential uses to the east and then the industrial to the west. As it stands right now, as this being neighborhood commercial, it's kind of a standalone, not consistent with the existing land use patterns in that area. Reclassifying this to industrial does not change the zoning nor the use of the property. It just indicates that if someone wanted to come in 5 years, purchase that property, rezone it to industrial, the master plan would support that project. So I do want to preface that as well. So again, it doesn't change classifications, doesn't change their existing use. There's still legal use there. Zoning would not change until a rezoning petition would come forward. But a rezoning petition looks at the future land use plan of your master plan. So they all tie together in a very circular way. So that is the recommendation for this property as well, to reclassify it to industrial.
One thing, especially for those that have been involved in the budget presentations before, especially in front of the council, citing these governmental documents that give the background. You would have seen sites where things are listed specifically in a master plan, a DDA plan, and a Parks and Rec plan, supporting what we're presenting based on the governmental process that took place, listing out the priorities. And at a bigger view here is where we'll be going through and completing this master plan, and I think it's certain, probably by fall, but definitely no later than the end of the year, have the council adopting the new master plan, which is your backbone in government. Every 5 years, that plan has to be reviewed. Predictably, what will occur is what occurred in the last 10. We review it internally, recommend to keep it as a whole and move forward another 5 years. So we're forecasting out in 10 years that council and staff can use this document to support recommendations that they will have in the future. From then, after the first of the year, we know in this fiscal year at least, and we'll wait till the master plan's completed, then we'll come back to this board recommending we update our DDA plan. And why we did it that way is a lot of data that McKenna's capturing right now can be used for a DDA plan, and we don't have to pay for things twice. Meaning if you do something just restricted to your DDA area, you can't use, you're not looking at the village as a whole. And then once the DDA plan is complete, we'll move to Parks and Rec. So in this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, all of these plans will be updated. And it is our prediction they'll be the three main governmental documents that are used for the next 10 years of investment here in the village.
Questions on 815 West Prairie? Our last recommendation looks at reclassifying the workplace title designation to mixed use. We find that workplace can be misleading, even though it does call out right there from our 2015 master plan mixed use development itself, in order to offer more of a, not incentive, but a clarity, if we will. Our recommendation is to change that title from workplace to mixed use. Doesn't change anything within the master plan itself, it's just what we categorize this category itself. Mr. Schenkel, I see the wheels turning in that line. No? All right. So then we're not asking for, are we asking for an action item tonight, Mr. Mallory?
No, we'll be, I mean, it's basically kind of giving you an update in this area. You guys think it over individually and we'll come back, have further discussion, but at the next time we bring it up will be the action item. So as you're thinking about this, or you might think another piece of property you're aware of in the village that wasn't cited in this, just ship us an email. It'll become part of the conversation. But we certainly wanted to bring you up to speed of some things that are going on the master plan.
So this is the only reclassification of properties then in the master plan that we've gone through, or will there be others?
It's just so far these three properties that we'd reclassify and then the title change of the designation. And to preface it too, like Mr. Mallory indicated, this is a update to our plan. It's not a complete rewrite of the master plan. A rewrite would then maybe look at further Mr. Holmes' expansions of future land use maps, everything out, and really kind of start from scratch. This is coming in, building on the blocks that already been there, tweaking things we need to here and there, such as these few parcels, and then coming back.
So there'll be multiple that is contained in the 2015 master plan that will formally adopt again. But these tonight are the improvements that staff's going to recommend.
Great, thank you.
Do you want me just to stay up here for the next item too?
Yeah, if I can introduce it just for the planning commission, as we've had things going time and juggling a lot. This site plan was first filed with staff at the village, I think January 3rd of 2023. We got a hold work with Kyle and his team, as well as Andrew Horn, to ensure at that time we were kind of looking, hoping for February, and certainly thought maybe March we could bring it forward. But as we started to look at different items on the site plan application as well as the property itself, we determined that as the current site plan was submitted, as well as some issues with the property, staff could not support that site plan. So we worked with the owner, and Paula's here tonight, and truly just opened the door that she could go direct with Kyle, or if there was questions, we certainly got Andrew involved right away. This board might remember in March, we had a variance request that came forward that the Planning Commission and ZBA supported, involving the pond and proximity to the water. There was some items on the site plan that still the developer and McKenna and staff worked with, and then on May 31st, we had a request to say that the developer felt we could move forward. So we asked McKenna and Andrew Horn, as well as Chris Hamilton in buildings, to review this for their expert opinion, with the expectation we could come here in front of you tonight if it was acceptable, or if we would have to work with the developer to make the July meeting. Happy to report, Chris Hamilton, really in a review like this, the big things and the developer's aware are gonna need the appropriate building permits, and really her process is the inspection and moving forward under the building permits. But she was comfortable with where it was at. We've asked Kyle to come speak on behalf of McKenna and Andrew Horn. If you have any questions for him specific to the site plan, I will take away the suspense. We are going to recommend approval of the site plan so the developer can move forward with this project, but certainly want Kyle to give a brief overview of the process, and then we'll turn it to Andrew Horn. But they will both be here to answer any questions anyone might have. So.
Thank you, sir. So as Jim mentioned already, we have worked with Paula here very extensively to get this to a stage where we could recommend approval for this. She has come forward with a stamped site plan, which is shown on, I believe it's page 48 of your packet as well. Some of the items that were asked previously to be addressed was dimensions of the parking spaces, some landscaping elements to be shown on there. As Mr. Mallory indicated too, the big hurdle we had was the provision in the zoning ordinance that did not permit constructions within 100 feet of the high water mark. The Zoning Board of Appeals in March did approve the variance request, which cleared a big hurdle for Paula and her team, which would allow us to move forward even further on this. As Mr. Mallory indicated, we are recommending approval. Speak out of turn for Paula here, but she's asking for a 13 by 20 foot building addition onto the south side where the existing covered porch awning is at this stage. I believe her plan is to remove that and then expand their kitchen and increase their facilities. Because it is a square footage increase, it did require site plan review and approval. The zoning ordinance does outline requirements for the approval, such as setback requirements, parking, landscaping, lighting, and so forth. We were very fortunate enough to work with Paula and her team that there were no significant or any real hurdles with this resubmission that would cause us to have concerns for recommending approval. Their site exceeds some of the items that are needed, as well as meeting the intent of your ordinance. I guess I'll defer to that. Mr. Mallory encapsulated a lot of the background already, so if there's any, defer to the Planning Commission and Mr. Horn if there's any further comments on this.
Yeah. Andrew, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you, but for Chair Schenkel, our recommendation is after Village Attorney Horn is completed, that we would seek a motion to support staff's recommendation to approve the site plan. If it is seconded by a board member, then open up conversation at the board level. So I'll turn it over to Andrew.
All right, thank you, Jim. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay, so Jim originally approached me with this site plan and it initially indicated that there would be a variance needed. We went through that process. Obviously, Jim and his team goes through the ordinance itself to make sure that everything complies with that. We want to basically go back through and make sure that there's no legal liability or anything of the sort that could pop up from this. Especially, I know originally there was an issue with where the property line was. We went ahead and did as much searching as we could and figured out that that's never going to be an issue. We can get that taken care of with Paula and her team, but there shouldn't be a hiccup for allowing them to move forward. We also, I know there was a question regarding the action on the site plan notice, anything like that. We found that everything was noticed out properly. We generally go to our ordinance and in 47534, it really lays out the criteria for the approval of the site plan. And it's important to note from our perspective that if they meet those criteria, our ordinance says that it shall be approved, meaning it has to be approved. So barring the planning commission or the village finding something in there that says, hey, this doesn't meet the ordinance or zoning ordinance or anything like that, then site plans should really be approved. We looked through from a broad perspective and found that it complied. Obviously, Jim and his team looked much closer and they found that it complied with everything. So we believe it actually has to be approved. So.
Great. Any additional comments from staff or legal or review? All right. As Mr. Mallory stated, we do need a motion and support. We can continue conversation, then we will take a vote.
This is Member Wortella. I move to approve the proposed site plan presented by Kepco Properties LLC, also known as Apple Knockers Ice Cream Parlor.
We have a motion on the floor from Wortella. Do we have support?
This is Member Bishop, and I support the motion.
Support by Bishop. Any further discussion?
Chairman Schenkel, if I could, just a quick one for Andrew. Andrew, I just want to refresh my memory here, and that is, I know that there is some discussion regarding the waterfront and the number of properties that we had that were near the waterfront, so much frontage from the waterfront, and it was identified that there was initially a concern with it, but it appears we resolved it. Can you walk me through that again, just to refresh my memory?
Absolutely. So when they originally came to the village, meaning Kepco came to the village and showed the survey work that was done, it showed that some of the properties didn't meet a very old variance, which indicated, and I can't remember the exact footage, but they had to be 100 feet, I believe, from the property line. So I think that was one of the big hiccups there with regard to the variance. The other idea was this development of an already existing, or I should say further development of an already existing property, which was right up against the water. Those variances were granted, I believe, as Jim indicated, possibly back in March. And so, I mean, those essentially are approved at this point. But yeah, it's no longer the idea that there's not enough water frontage. I think the bigger issue was that the building wasn't far enough away from the water. Right. Looked at it previously, still couldn't find anything with Eagle or anything of the sort, because you've got properties like this all across Michigan. So where that initial setback came from, we're not 100% sure, but clearly with the hundreds of properties we've got in the area, it hasn't been followed by one. So.
Okay, thank you. I knew it was something we discussed, but it's been a while, so that's why I wanted to just refresh my memory.
Completely understood.
Any further discussion before we take a vote? All right, Secretary.
Can I ask Paul a question? Is it appropriate or? Paula, what does this mean to your business? What is this change in your operations mean?
Please. You can tell them.
What this means is that we would be able to move all of our large freezers that we use for storage of food and ice cream to one location. We currently have two locations, one at 615 West Prairie, which is our kitchen, and then Apple Knockers that has just several coolers. This enables us to consolidate and put all of our kitchen and refrigeration in one place.
Love what you guys do, and
Sure.
it's like it, right? But just curious from a business standpoint, what do you think it's going to expand your menu?
You're gonna have to turn the mic on because people, I want you to turn the mic on, just don't touch that piece of it.
Hold my hands, John. I don't want to touch it again. No, I
Well, the first thing that it does is it reduces our labor costs, which is crucial. That's the number one thing. The second thing it does, because we can now share our labor and our prep time, we plan to, let's see, how should I say this? We plan to produce all the food that we used to produce at Windfall, which is currently closed. And the next time I come here, it will be for a site plan for the new Windfall building. So that kitchen will also then be supplying Windfall food also, breakfast, sandwiches, salads. But all the prep work can be done by the staff that's there during the day. So I don't have to run two staffs. Yeah. I anticipate about a 30% savings in cost.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion before we take a vote? Okay, Secretary Cox, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Rachel Blankenhorn,
Yes.
Rick Manchester,
Yes.
Bill Coster, yes. Matt Schenkel,
Yes.
Rick Henry,
Yes.
Don DeBolt,
Yes.
Zach Bishop,
Yes.
Don Whitella.
Yes.
All right, thank you. On to next item on our agenda, 8, is DDA action items. And first on there is a budget presentation.
Yeah, and if I can, twofold, go ahead and excuse Andrew Horn. I think we're good on the budget process, unless Andrew wants to stay for the next 2 hours and hear my presentation on that. Same with Paula.
thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andrew. I appreciate it. Thanks. I do think on that, we're, you know, if you had an opportunity to look at all the memos from McKenna and then the historical detail that they keep, they're a good asset to have. I'm trying to get down to all right. This is specific to the DDA. And the 23-24 fiscal year. The met with the subcommittee from the DDA, staff has taken into account, and it's, I think, important to remember we have multiple revenue streams here in the village of Vicksburg. We have general fund, which are our property tax revenue, state shared revenue. We have major roads, local roads that come from the state. We have brownfield, water, sewer, golf, and we also have our tax capture from our downtown development authority tax jurisdiction. And it's our goal as a staff, as we prep a yearly budget, is to take revenue and invest it with the goal being our general fund revenue to be the last revenue source we need to use. And we've done that now consistently for 6 years in a row, and we've seen where it's compounded and been able to benefit the village. And if I forget, Christian will remind me during this presentation of the specific example of park benches in Oswald Park on how this works and helps out the village overall. But what we did is we sent members of the board just kind of a summary of the budget that included a historical look at revenue and expenses and in items that had been invested utilizing DDA dollars. We also identified the DDA plan, which was completed in 2014 as the governmental document that we used in the investment of those dollars. Historically, be able to answer any questions that you might have, but specific to the 23-24 fiscal year revenue and a carry forward total. And what I mean by carry forward, it's the amount of money that we end a fiscal year with in the 248 account, which 248 is our DDA account, and we'll push that forward into the next fiscal year. I think if my memory serves me correct, by legislation, we have to use the DDA money within 3 years. So won't get into too far into the weeds, but we do all that internally to ensure that that money is applied within that time period, but we also keep a running total. And again, if you have a question, don't hesitate to hold up a hand and be able to answer anything. But we are believe that our unrestricted reserve balance will be approximately $195,000 as of June 30th, 2023. So we use the estimated revenue will be $110,000, and we add that to the $195,000, if you will, in that bank account to come up with that total of $305,000. Our estimated expenses for the fiscal year are $177,000, and we represent the revenue in $72,000 in tax captures, $38,000 from grant dollars we received in grants, and the $195 that is in savings, if you will, from this fiscal year. You can see as we go through the different departments, we're looking at an administrative department, and that deals with trainings that we are looking at in this fiscal year to have a facilitator come in and kind of do at least one, if not a couple, work sessions with this board as it relates specific to the downtown area and what and really look at the next 2-year time period, and it'll be facilitated in that concept, not a historical review, but look at the next 2 years of what is important for this group as it relates to the DDA, and we'd be looking at that next spring, which we would then use to prep the 24-25 and 25-26 more CIP needs. So we are looking at a strategic planning session. We did one this year with the council that I think went really well. We also last year, and you'll see where, and it was approved in the budget process, we took $7,500, and originally last year we're applying it to the community engagement position that Alex Lee held. Alex retired in October, and so you'll see in the amendments, we'll go through that on this fiscal year, but we are recommending that same $7,500 to offset the time that will go into the downtown, whether it's events or fill in the blank. The only difference between last fiscal year and the 23-24 is we'll apply that to the village manager's position. I'm going to pause there. If people have questions, then we'll take each one of these estimated expense areas and answer overall questions. On the economic development, this is big. We've heard from one or a couple business owners tonight. I am relaying to you. It started really as the Christmas in the Berg event has come up, and for a long time that I've lived in this village, we had the car show. You might have had a Taste of Kalamazoo or Taste of Vicksburg event downtown, but certainly in the last couple years where we've brought food trucks into our downtown, had the birthday celebration, the Christmas, the iceberg, we have quantified data of the impact, not the impact first and foremost on the reputation of the village of Vicksburg. We have impact positively on our retail establishments across the board, what it means to bring people in our town. I tell the owners of the businesses and buildings, I feel it's a responsibility of us as government to get people curious enough to come to Vicksburg. It's their responsibility in the private sector to ensure they come back, because they'll come back based on product and service. They'll come back based on a safe, walkable area, well lit and that. So we have something going. We want it to continue. So it's a sizable investment, but we're again going to continue to further develop a marketing plan that's been initiated in the last couple months. It will be designed around the theme of the Berg. And our goal would be, if anyone in Michigan wanted to go do a Berg, they would know the one that they're talking about by 2025 for sure. And other things contained within that, as well as trying to get my pages straight here on the way this printed out to make sure that I'm not all of a sudden going into something else I shouldn't be. But in that is also the expenses around these events, because that's spurring this economic development. Go on the one up here. The one on streetscapes that will also make up a sizable portion of that investment is the example that I provided on utilizing the appropriate revenue stream. So we're proposing in the overall budget that will go in front of the council 4 additional tables that will match the placemaking tables within our downtown. 6 seats, black, same company. We already have the quote, know the price, know the delivery date. 2 of those tables would go in Oswalt Park, where closest to Prairie Street, where there's 2 picnic tables right now. They would match the other 3 tables that are in the park. The 3rd and 4th table would go in front of the bump out in front of China One in the Hideaway. It was designed originally for 5 tables, but due to investments, we just had to wait a year to add the 2. The Oswalt Park tables and these tables are within our DDA district. So if we were to say, well, Oswalt Park's a park, why don't you use Park and Rec money to buy those tables? Well, our Parks and Recreation Department is funded by our general fund tax dollars. So we have enough revenue to sustain the purchase of these 4 tables utilizing DDA money, and the $6,000 or $7,000 that we save on the 2 tables in Oswald Park, not using general fund money, now gets applied into our parks system. And within the overall budget presentation to the council, you'll see where that amount is, and pretty substantial what we can do. So that's kind of a specific example of where we start to look what is best money to use. An item in Parks and Rec, you know, and I don't want to get too far, this is a DDA, but we do it in every section. So we want a new non-motorized trail, or a current trail, but update the asphalt. Instead of using general fund money, we got approval through the state to use state road money on that section, and it's going to be between 200 and 251,000 the way the bids are coming in. So we do it for everyone. By everyone, I'm talking every subgroup. And I'll pause there because I don't want to go too far, but to give you a sense, if you do have a question, why are we using DDA money in a park? That's why, but I'll be happy to answer any question. No questions, we'll move on. You can see, again, it's under the streetscape area, reference the tables. The one, we're gonna look at 3 additional trash receptacles, again, that match and the quality of the project we put in. They'll go down in front of the Lake Living store on Prairie Street, which will help around some of the curb areas. Another one on Main, the south side of Main, one on the south side of Main, 2 on Prairie Street down by the Lake Living, that will help out. The other item that, again, we're just pushing the envelope here, is we're going to get some outdoor TVs that we can bring in and utilize sporting events that people go to complement our social district, to have specific areas that they can watch big games. We've put a large investment in the bump outs, Oswald Park. So we have 3 of those that we've put in that streetscapes department. Thought Mr. DeBalt was coming out of the chair with a question there. I wasn't.
Well, if he's not, I do. No, I think it's a great idea, Jim, because there's so much we could do with that. New Year's Eve celebration. You know, I mean, look at what we've got downtown and we're building on. I mean, oh my gosh, can you imagine the streets filled on New Year's Eve when we have those screens? That'd be wonderful. So,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Again, you see where the breakup on Parks and Rec, 2 of the tables in that. And then the grant program, we are recommending a continuation of the grant program that's expanded, $115,000 award, which was previously awarded from this group and supported by the council for this fiscal year, to not the topic that was in front of you, reference apple knockers, but in changing the garage building in back to mirror the Doris Lee building and have it be a retail component as well, if you remember. But 2 additional $7,500 grants and 2 $3,000 grants for public benefit. Happy to report we obviously had the Hideaways large investment, Jasper's large investment, Classic Mortgage just finished their pour and submitted their invoices that are paid. You should see a brand new door being installed this week at the Pottery Shop, and to give that clear view to the interior. And I anticipate the Reed building will have substantially completed what they had put in their grant program. I will contact others I haven't heard from to see where they are, if we're going to push money forward or not. But for purposes of this discussion, we felt it was beneficial. It was $109,000 of investment into buildings for public goods, that we had a 50% share in, on the overall approval. And if it does get approved, I'll personally, with Christian's be handing out those applications to every business and building owner in the DDA district, so we can get those applications in and turned around. The last item there is one item that we do every year. It's transferred to other funds. Basically, we have an option as a municipality. We could keep track of hours of DPW staff involvement in the DDA area. We could, which will exceed $6,000, I believe. I know. And we transfer it to the general fund, and it's in cover that. It also is a checkbox that we do not charge each time we plow the parking lots within the DDA district, which we do not charge for the removal of snow. But again, if we did keep track of all of that, it would exceed the number quite a bit. But we're comfortable at $6,000. So I'll pause there with any questions. We'd recommend a motion, support, and approval of the proposed 23-24 fiscal year DDA budget be presented in front of the council on June 19th, with some other areas of the overall budget to be implemented July 1st.
Just want to make a quick comment that further discussion happens after a motion and support, and then we vote and can have as many different motions subsequent. But we have an action item before us, and in order to continue that conversation, need a motion and a support on that.
This is Member DeWalt. I motion that we approve the DDA budget for 23-24 as written.
We have a motion on the floor from Member DeVault. Support for that motion?
This is Member Bishop. I support.
All right. Further comments or questions regarding the budget recommendation and presentation for next fiscal year?
I have one for Mr. Mallory, actually. At the other meeting or the Zoom meeting we had, you mentioned that you wanted to bring up the purchasing cost to what the village manager would match what the village uses as well. When you purchase something, it's a dollar figure that you wanted brought up.
That's a very good reminding point. Yes. We wanted to place in front of the Planning Commission in DDA, it will be a separate motion, but would be the next one, just that the purchasing policy mirrors that of the village. How it really impacts the DDA one is more antiquated and limits the purchasing to $1,000. The village, without board approval, the village policy is $5,000. It's always reported what's expensed. When timing works, it's reported beforehand. But with the DDA meeting once a month and cost and more events going on, some of it would just, if after the fiscal year presentation, a separate motion to have the purchasing utilizing DDA funds mirror that of what the village purchasing policy is.
Any other questions for staff on the 23-24 fiscal year budget? Not. Take a roll call vote. Secretary Cox, please.
Donatella,
Yes.
Nick Bishop,
Yes.
John DeVault,
Yes.
Rick Holmes,
Yes.
Matt Schenkel,
Yes.
Bill Cox, yes. Rick Manchester,
Yes.
Rachel Blankenhorn.
Yes.
There we go. Next item is the budget amendments.
We'll put two mics in the budget
Yeah.
probably later on,
Yeah.
but
Too many on, off, on, off.
the next item is a yearly occurrence at fourth quarter budget amendments, and that's just to make sure that the current fiscal year we're in, the 22-23, once it gets presented in front of the auditors, that all the accounts line up. As you can see, there's two revenue accounts, well, three. Under property tax, I've also given the total amount that was received from the township. Interest on investments as well as holiday events indicates the revenue that was fundraised for the Christmas in the Berg event. On the expense side, I just have a note there, reference the retirement of the community engagement director and recommending in full transparency that those funds will be applied to the village manager post his retirement. So internally, we'll figure out what percentage of the 7,500 is applied up till October for community engagement, post-October to the village manager, as well as promotion and advertising. This is, we're upping at 10,000, mainly due to the Berg and the village events because of the events in June. We didn't have this plan when we presented a year ago to the DDA that there would even be Berg and the village events. So we're just adjusting for the 3 out of the 9 events that occur in June within the current fiscal year that we're in. And we've already taken receipt of the grant money. As well as then we need formal approval on the last item is that same $6,000 that we apply each fiscal year to offset into the general fund. Even though it's in the budget, we still go in front of the board for the approval prior to us moving the money. So that's specific to this fiscal year, but be happy to answer any questions.
Same thing, have a action item before us, motion, support, additional conversation, and then roll call vote.
Trustee Holmes, make a motion that we approve as submitted by the village manager.
Motion to approve the budget amendments by Holmes, and do we have support?
This is Member Cox, I support.
Great. Any additional comments or questions for staff on this one? Member Cox, roll call vote, please.
Rachel Blankenhorn,
Yes.
Rick Manchester,
Yes.
Bill Cox, yes. Matt Schenkel,
Yes.
Rick Holmes,
Yes.
John DeVault,
Yes.
Zach Bishop,
Yes.
Don Matella,
Yes.
Mr. Mallory, how would you recommend that we move forward
I
with the
would-
purchasing?
Yeah, if someone could make a motion that the expenditures of DDA revenue are handled in the same manner, are handled within the Village of Vicksburg's purchasing policy.
This is Member Devolved. I'll make a motion that we adopt the purchasing policy of the village to match the DDA.
All right, motion on the floor from Member DeBalt. Do we have support for that?
Blankenhorn, I support the motion.
Thank you, Rachel. Any additional questions or comments on this? All right, our final roll call vote this evening, Mr. Cox.
Don Matella,
Yes.
Zach Bishop,
Yes.
John Balk,
Yes.
Rick Holm,
Yes.
Matt Schinkel,
Yes.
Bill Cox, yes. Rick Manchester,
Yes.
Rachel Blankenhorn.
Yes.
Great. Final item on our agenda is member comments. You're welcome to jump in and share anything that you would like at this time.
This is Member DeBalt. I'd just like to give a thanks to the DPW crowd that was there this weekend. The crew that was on did a fantastic job of taking care of the village. And again, coming in here at 5:30 on Sunday morning, you would not even know there was anything in town at 5:30 in the morning, Sunday morning. So kudos to the boys again.
I would like to, Trustee Holmes, I'd like to echo Commissioner DeBalt's comments. It's, you know, it seems like every one of our events just continues to get bigger. And we have Christmas in the village, great. And then we have the iceberg, and it's even bigger. And then, you know, look at what we just had. And so that's why I think it's going to be wonderful to see what happens with the Berg Days of Summer. And Jim, again, you know, commend you and the staff on continuing to do just an outstanding job on this stuff. It's just great to see. Would also like to give a shout out. The Vicksburg High School softball team is in a state quarterfinal tomorrow night at K College. If they win, they play the team that beat them in the state final in 2017. And it would be nice to see that game happen. So go Bulldogs.
Jim, that'd be a good first event for the TVs downtown. If we can make that happen this evening.
Softball?
You can borrow mine, I'll bring mine.
I would echo the car show comments. Great event. Felt really well organized. Lots and lots of people turn out. There's lots of different things happening. My in-laws were in from Wisconsin, and they couldn't get over just how many people were there, how many different things there were that were happening. It wasn't just a car show, it was an art show, it was food, it was arts and culture. Just lots of vibrancy happening in Vicksburg. So thanks to Jim, thanks to his team, DPW, like you said, John, fantastic job cleaning up the village and taking care of us as well. So well done. Any other comments from this group? All right, time is 8:23. I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.